Welcome to Urban Lullabies. Tonight, let your thoughts drift into the dim corners of the map, where stories whisper between branches, and legends bloom in the dark. There's a name passed around in quiet towns and hushed conversations. You may have heard it as a child, or in a story someone swore was true. Melon Heads. Some say they were patients of an asylum, twisted by cruel experiments. Others say they were born wrong, left to the forest, where the trees raised them. But no matter the version, one thing remains the same. They were never supposed to be found. What follows is a descent. A slow unraveling of memory, identity, and what it means to be real. So lie back. Close your eyes. And try to remember, if something watches from the edge of your dreams tonight. Don't look back. This is Melon Heads. Sleep well. If you can. Asterisk. They say the woods remember everything. Not just the things you see, but the things you feel when you're there. The things you try to forget. I never meant to talk about what happened when I was 13. I buried it for decades, convinced it was a trick of childhood fear, an overactive imagination fed by urban legends and campfire stories. But I know better now. I've come back to this place, to the town, to the woods, for the first time in almost 30 years, and it feels like something has been waiting for me. I can smell the earth through the cracked truck window, that old mix of damp pine and rotting leaves. It's early October, just cold enough to see your breath in the mornings, and the sky's the color of wet stone. The air here doesn't feel like it moves right. It hangs heavy. Like the trees are listening. This all happened in Kirtland, Ohio. Maybe you've heard of it. If not, maybe you've heard the stories. About the Melon Heads. People talk about them like a joke now. The local legend, a strange kind of roadside folklore you tell to spook your friends on late-night drives through the backwoods. Supposedly they're mutated children, escapees from some long-abandoned asylum deep in the forest. With bulbous, oversized heads, shriveled bodies, and a taste for human flesh, at least, that's how the story usually goes. I remember hearing about them when I was a kid. Everyone did. We grew up surrounded by the legend. Kids in the neighborhood whispered about the Melon Heads like they were real. The stories changed depending on who told them. Sometimes they were victims of a deranged doctor's experiments, sometimes inbred monsters from a hidden family, sometimes just spirits of wronged children, luring you into the woods. But the one constant was the woods. Always the woods. And we were stupid enough to go looking for them. It's funny, people assume kids make up stories to feel brave. But I think the opposite is true. We tell these stories because deep down, we know something's wrong. Something's waiting just out of sight, behind the trees, in the shadows between the campfire glow and the rest of the world. We tell the stories to make it manageable. To name the thing we're afraid of. But what we found that night couldn't be named. Back then, we were just kids trying to scare each other. Me, my best friend Andy, his little brother Chris, and a girl named Sadie who'd moved into the neighborhood that summer. We thought we were invincible. We thought nothing bad could happen in a town like ours. But the woods on Wisner Road, those woods were different. People said there used to be a hospital out there, hidden behind overgrown trails and rusted fences. One of those, homes for the feeble-minded, they called them in old news articles. That's where the Melon Heads were supposed to come from. The story said a doctor named Crow ran experiments on the children there. Some said he was just cruel. Others said he was trying to fix their deformities and made them worse. The legend says that after a fire, or maybe a riot, the children escaped into the woods, and the facility was shut down, left to rot. You won't find the building anymore, though. They say the forest swallowed it. Some people think it never existed at all. I used to be one of them. Until the night we went in. I can still see Andy's face when he dared me to go. That crooked grin, the flashlight flickering under his chin as he leaned in and whispered, "Bet you won't make it past the gate." We'd found a rusty old chain-link fence half-collapsed behind a tangle of brush. The kind of thing no one notices unless they're looking for it. I don't know how Andy found it. He always had a way of finding the things people wanted to keep hidden. We stepped over the fence. That was the first mistake. The ground felt colder on the other side. That sounds stupid, I know, but it did. Like the temperature dropped 5 degrees the moment we crossed over. Sadie said she felt like we were being watched. Chris laughed it off and threw a pine cone into the woods. But I remember the way the trees seemed taller out there. Denser. Like they grew together to block out the sky. And then we heard it. A crack in the distance, like a twig snapping underfoot. Just one. Sharp and deliberate. We stopped walking. We listened. Nothing. Then Chris said something that still makes my skin crawl when I think about it. He said, "What if they're following us?" We laughed. Of course we laughed. But none of us made a sound after that. We kept walking. Because we had to. Because we were 13, and turning back would have meant losing the dare. But part of me wonders if that was the last moment we could have turned back at all. We didn't talk much as we moved deeper into the woods. The laughter had dried up. Even Chris, who usually couldn't stop running his mouth, went quiet. The trees stretched out like walls, their limbs clawing at the gray sky above. It was the kind of silence that wasn't empty, but crowded. Like we weren't alone, even if we couldn't see anyone. Sadie walked just behind me, her flashlight beam trembling across the ground. Andy was in front, leading with his usual overconfidence. He carried one of those cheap plastic lanterns, the kind you'd win at a school raffle, that buzzed faintly when it got too cold. The orange light it gave off made the leaves look like dried blood. We followed a narrow path that wasn't really a path. More like a gap between the trees where enough kids had walked through over the years to flatten the undergrowth. Every now and then, I'd catch a flash of something in the distance, a shape, a tree out of place, a deeper patch of shadow, but I kept telling myself it was nothing. It had to be nothing. That's how you survive these stories, right? You don't believe them. The trail sloped downward, and the forest started to change. The trees grew closer together, branches knotted like arthritic fingers. The air smelled off. Like wet rust and old meat. Andy stopped suddenly, nearly making Chris bump into him. "What?" I whispered. He didn't answer right away. He just pointed. There, ahead of us, was a clearing. But it wasn't just the open space that stopped us. It was what was in it. An old building. Half collapsed, brick and stone devoured by moss and ivy. Its roof had caved in, and one side leaned heavily against a tree, as if the forest was trying to pull it down into the soil. It looked more like a bunker than a hospital, square, low to the ground, no windows, just a warped metal door hanging crooked on rusted hinges. Chris let out a nervous laugh. "This is it? The asylum?" "No way," Sadie said. Her voice was hushed. "It's too small." Andy shrugged. Maybe it was just one of the outbuildings. He was probably right. It didn't look big enough to house more than a handful of people. But there was something about it that felt wrong. I don't mean in the obvious way, like it was spooky or run down or whatever. I mean the kind of wrong that you don't see, but feel in your bones. Like it wasn't meant to be found. "Let's go inside," Andy said, smiling that same smug daredevil smile. Chris hesitated. "What if it collapses?" Andy rolled his eyes. "Then don't stand under the ceiling." He stepped forward. The metal door screeched against stone as he pulled it open. The sound was sharp enough to make my teeth hurt. Cold air spilled out of the building, damp, stale, heavy. Andy's lantern lit up a short hallway leading into the dark. He turned and looked at us. Well, none of us wanted to say no. So we followed. The inside was worse than the outside. The floor was dirt, packed hard by time and footsteps. The walls were covered in graffiti, old symbols, names, nonsense scrawled in black and red spray paint. But some of it wasn't paint. Some of it looked scratched in. Deep, erratic gouges in the wall, as if someone had dug at the bricks with fingernails or knives. Sadie covered her nose. "It stinks." She was right. It did. Like mold and rot, but underneath that was something sour, almost chemical. Like the smell of an old hospital, but wrong. Twisted. We wandered through two small rooms. One looked like it had once been an office. There was a rusted metal desk and the remains of what might have been filing cabinets. The other room had a drain in the center of the floor. I don't know why that chilled me more than anything else. "I bet this was a lab," Andy said. "Yeah," I said, trying to joke. "For turning kids into mutants." Chris didn't laugh. In fact, Chris was staring at something near the far wall. His flashlight beam trembled slightly. "What is that?" he whispered. We all turned. There was a door. A different kind of door. Narrow, metal, half hidden behind a fallen shelf. It looked older than the rest of the building, reinforced, like a vault. It had no handle, just a small square opening about the size of a shoebox near the bottom. "Was this here before?" Andy asked. I shook my head. No idea. He walked toward it, crouching down to peer through the hole. "Don't," Sadie started. But before she could finish, Andy flinched. He jerked back, stumbling, dropping the lantern. The light rolled across the floor, casting spinning shadows on the walls. "What happened?" I asked. "There's something in there," he said breathlessly. "I swear, I saw." He didn't finish. None of us did. Because from somewhere behind the door, in the deep, unnatural dark, we heard a sound. A long, low scraping noise. Like nails on concrete. Then something moved. Just for a second. A pale shape, low to the ground, fast. We didn't wait. We ran. No one said a word until we were back outside, gasping in the cold night air. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, pounding like it wanted to break free from my chest. Chris was pale. Sadie looked like she was going to cry. Andy didn't say anything. He just stared at the building. Then he said, quietly, we weren't alone in there. We didn't speak much on the way back. It wasn't even a conscious decision, no one told the group to shut up or act tough. We just couldn't. Something about what we saw in that building had drained the words from our mouths. Even Chris, who never stopped talking during a normal day, kept glancing over his shoulder like he expected someone, something, to be behind us. But the path wasn't the same anymore. That's what really did it for me. That's when I knew something was wrong. It should have been easy to retrace our steps, we hadn't gone that far in. But now, as we stumbled through the trees, the path seemed to twist and shift. Familiar landmarks looked off. Like they'd been rearranged when we weren't looking. We passed the same fallen log twice. I know we did. Didn't we already come this way? Sadie asked, hugging herself. Her voice was tight, like she didn't want to admit she was scared. Andy snapped, no. Just keep walking. I wanted to believe him. But I'd started noticing the quiet. Not just quiet, the absence of sound. No insects. No birds. Not even the rustling of leaves overhead. Just our footsteps crunching dead brush underfoot, and our breathing, getting shallower and faster with every passing minute. I think we're lost, Chris said. Andy ignored him. He moved ahead quickly, shoving branches aside like he could force the woods to cooperate. I stayed behind with Sadie and Chris. Sadie gripped her flashlight like a weapon. Her knuckles were white. Then we heard it again. That sound. The soft, deliberate crack of a twig behind us. We froze. Sadie's light swung back toward the trees, nothing. Another sound, closer this time. A breath, maybe. A dragging noise. Like something crawling slowly over dry leaves. "Let's just run," Chris whispered. But I shook my head. No. That's what it wants. I didn't even know why I said that. It just came out, unthinking, like my body remembered something my mind didn't. Andy finally turned around. "There's a fork up ahead. I think I see the fence." We hurried to catch up, tripping over roots and undergrowth. The path did split, one side led into a deeper patch of trees, the other curved uphill, where the light seemed just a little less smothered. We didn't argue. We followed the light. And that's when we saw it. The clearing. But not the one we came from. This one was smaller, enclosed by thick thickets on all sides except for the trail we stood on. And in the center, was a structure. Not a building. Not like the one before. This was something else. A wooden post, maybe 6 feet tall, weathered and rotting. Around it, small piles of stones had been arranged, carefully, deliberately, into little rings. Some had bones inside. Small bones. Too small. Tied to the post, flapping weakly in the breeze, were scraps of cloth. Faded, sun-bleached, and stained. Red-brown. Chris stepped back. "What is this?" "I don't think it's for us," Sadie murmured. Andy moved closer to the post. I wanted to grab him, stop him, but I couldn't move. None of us could. He knelt down beside one of the stone piles and picked something up. A shoe. A child's shoe. Old. Moldy. The sole coming apart in his hands. We all just stood there, paralyzed, as Andy stared at it. His lips moved, like he wanted to say something, but then he looked up, and froze. "What?" I asked. He didn't answer. He was looking past us. "Andy?" Sadie whispered, turning around slowly. And then she saw it too. At the edge of the trees, half hidden in the gloom, something was watching us. It was short, barely 4 feet tall. Hairless. Skin like wax, stretched too thin over spindly limbs. And the head, bloated, bulbous, too large for the body. It twitched slightly, as if the neck couldn't support the weight. I couldn't see the eyes, but I felt them. Like knives sliding under my skin. Chris gasped. The thing cocked its head. And then, it stepped back. Not ran. Not lunged. It simply slid back into the shadows, vanishing soundlessly into the woods. We didn't wait. We ran. We tore through the trees, lungs burning, legs aching, branches slashing our arms and faces. We didn't care. We just ran. And somehow, we made it back to the fence. We practically fell over it, tumbling into the ditch by the road. The world felt different out there. The air moved again. We could hear the wind, the hum of far-off cars. It was like stepping back into reality. None of us said a word. We just walked home. And none of us ever talked about what we saw. Not for a long, long time. The next morning, we tried to pretend everything was normal. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, my cereal going soggy while the spoon just sat in my hand. My mom asked if I was feeling okay. I think I said something like, just tired. That was the truth, in a way. I hadn't slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it, that thing, standing just beyond the trees, its oversized head tilted, its body unnaturally still. But that wasn't what haunted me the most. What haunted me was that it hadn't attacked. It hadn't chased us. It had just watched. Like it was curious. Like it was waiting. At school, none of us spoke about it. I saw Andy at his locker. He looked like hell. Eyes red-rimmed, a faint bruise on his jaw from where he'd tripped over a root while running. Chris didn't even show up to homeroom. I assumed he was sick, or maybe he was just faking it. I couldn't blame him. Sadie sat behind me in English. She didn't say a word, didn't even look at me. But I could feel something had shifted between us, like we'd shared a secret too heavy for either of us to carry. A secret that saw us back. That afternoon, we gathered behind the 7-Eleven, where we usually went to trade snacks or lie about what we were going to do on the weekend. Andy was already there, pacing. He looked like he was trying to convince himself the whole thing had been a hallucination. "You guys saw it too, right?" he said finally. No one answered at first. Then Sadie nodded. "It wasn't human." "What was it, then?" Andy asked, his voice sharp. Chris looked at the ground. "You think it was one of them?" He didn't say Melon Heads. None of us did. Not out loud. "I don't know," I said. "Maybe." There was a long pause. Then Andy said something I hadn't expected. "We should go back." Chris and Sadie both turned to him, eyes wide. "No," I said. "Absolutely not." He shrugged. "We didn't do anything. We didn't get proof. If we had a camera." "You want to film it?" Sadie snapped. "What the hell is wrong with you?" "I'm not saying now. Just, eventually. We can't just pretend it didn't happen." "But maybe we should," Chris said quietly. We argued for a while, well, mostly Andy argued. He wanted to go back. He said we owed it to ourselves, that we were part of something bigger now. The rest of us wanted to forget. And for a while, we did. Weeks passed. Halloween came and went. The air grew colder. The leaves turned brittle and fell in clumps onto the sidewalks, and the woods seemed to retreat under frost. We stopped talking about that night. Stopped hanging out in the woods entirely. And for a while, it almost worked. Until Chris disappeared. It happened in the second week of November. He'd gone to take the trash out one night. That's all. His mom said it was around 7:30. Light had already faded by then, and there was a frost warning on the news. He never came back inside. They found the trash can knocked over, its lid a few feet away in the grass. One glove lay beside it. No signs of struggle. No footprints in the mud. The police looked everywhere. Dogs, helicopters, volunteers combing the woods and the fields behind their house. Nothing. Not even a shred of fabric. Andy and I stood across the street the next morning, watching from the edge of my driveway. His face was pale, jaw tight. "You think they took him?" he asked. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because deep down, I already knew. It wasn't the kind of knowing you could explain to anyone, not the cops, not our parents, not even ourselves. It wasn't rational. It wasn't even logical. But it was true. They'd come back for him. Sadie showed up at my house later that night. She didn't say anything at first, just sat on the front steps beside me, wrapped in her oversized hoodie, knees pulled up to her chest. "They took him, didn't they?" she finally asked. I didn't look at her. "I think so. I had a dream last night," she said. I was back in the clearing. But it wasn't empty. They were all there. Like, 6 or 7 of them. Standing in a circle around the post. I waited. One of them was wearing a shirt. A blue one. It had that cartoon dog on it. Chris's shirt. I didn't say anything. "I woke up screaming," she said. "My mom thought it was just a nightmare. But it wasn't." "No," I whispered. "It wasn't. For days after that, I couldn't go outside at night. I'd look at the treeline from my bedroom window and feel like I was being watched. Sometimes I thought I saw shapes moving between the trees, pale and quick, darting just out of sight. Sometimes I heard faint tapping against the glass. I never told anyone. Andy called me once. Said he was going back out there. Said he had to know. I told him not to. He hung up. I never saw him again. Andy's parents told everyone he ran away. His mom sobbed through the press conference. Said he'd been struggling, ever since Chris disappeared. Said he'd been acting distant, quiet, not sleeping well. His dad tried to hold it together, but he kept rubbing his hands together like he was trying to wash something off. They found Andy's backpack in the woods behind the baseball field. Inside were a flashlight, a pack of granola bars, and a half-charged camcorder. The kind you could buy at Walmart for $50. There was no footage on it, just static, white snow fuzzing the screen when they played it back. Not even audio. The police launched another search. Brought in more dogs. Drones. They found nothing. Not a thread, not a boot print. Just empty forest. Sadie and I met up the night after they stopped looking. We didn't speak at first. There wasn't anything to say. We sat in the tunnel under the train tracks, the place we used to go when we skipped class or wanted to scare each other with ghost stories. Now, it felt like a grave. I think he wanted them to take him, Sadie finally said. I looked over. Her eyes were hollow, ringed with sleepless dark. What do you mean? I think he went back because he wanted to see them again. To prove they were real. To get it on camera, maybe. But I don't think that was all of it. I waited. I think, he felt chosen. That word stuck in my mind. Chosen. Like they'd marked him. Like seeing one of them wasn't just a mistake, it was a door being opened. And once it was open, it couldn't be shut again. I pulled something out of my jacket pocket. It was a piece of paper. Folded and worn soft from being handled too many times. Andy had given it to me a week before he disappeared. Said he'd found it in one of the old library archives, stuck between two books on regional folklore. I unfolded it and passed it to Sadie. She read it in silence. Her lips moved along with the words. It was an excerpt. No author. No date. Just a few paragraphs of uncredited typewritten text. It said, "There are reports of malformed children seen near the woods east of Hayden Hollow. Heads too large, eyes too small. Believed to be remnants of old asylum experiments. Survivors, perhaps. Or their descendants. Local children speak of the Melon Heads, figures who watch, follow, and, sometimes, take. Survivors claim the creatures live underground, in tunnels left behind by government experiments. They feed on animals. Occasionally, humans. The selection is not random. The creatures only take those who see them. Witnesses are marked, followed. They begin to hear things. Dream of old buildings. Hear voices in vents. Most disappear within weeks." Sadie handed it back to me, silent. We didn't need to say it aloud. Chris had seen one. Then Andy. And now, it was just the two of us. "What about me?" she whispered. I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. I hadn't seen it as clearly as the others. Just a shape, a movement. Not a face. Not up close. Not like Andy. Not like Chris. But Sadie. Sadie had made eye contact. And something had changed in her since that night. She jumped at shadows. Said she heard tapping under her bed at night. Said her closet door never stayed closed anymore. "I think they're in the vents," she said once. I thought she was joking. Until I started hearing them too. The clicking. Soft. Rhythmic. Like fingers on metal. It started in the walls. Then the floorboards. Then, one night, I heard it coming from inside my bathroom drain. I couldn't prove it, of course. But I knew. I stopped sleeping. I pushed furniture against the windows. I taped over the vents. None of it helped. They were already inside. One night, Sadie called me around midnight. She didn't say hello. Just whispered, "They're outside." My throat went dry. How many? I don't know. I don't want to look again. One of them is on the porch. I can hear the wood creaking. Call the police, I said. She laughed, hollow. And tell them what? That the Melon Heads are coming for me? I had no response. I think they want me to go with them, she said. I keep hearing this voice, whispering from the hallway. It sounds like Chris. Or Andy. But it's not. It isn't them. I gripped the phone tighter. Don't open the door, I said. Promise me. She was quiet. Then, I think I already did. The line went dead. I called her back over and over. No answer. The next morning, I biked to her house. The front door was wide open. Her mom was in the yard, on the phone, screaming. Police cars showed up minutes later. Sadie's bed was empty. Her phone was on the floor by the window. No signs of forced entry. Just, gone. Like she'd vanished into the trees. Like she'd been taken home. After Sadie vanished, I stopped leaving my house. Not just at night, at all. I told my mom I was sick. That I had a stomach bug, or mono, or something that made me too tired to go to school. She didn't argue. I think, deep down, she knew something was wrong. She just didn't want to admit it. Every morning she'd leave a bowl of soup outside my door and whisper, "Try to eat something today." I never did. I kept the curtains shut. Slept during the day. Stayed up all night with the lights on, gripping a baseball bat in one hand and a flashlight in the other. The vents were sealed. Windows double-locked. But it didn't matter. I could still hear them. The whispering started around 3 a.m. Always the same time. Always the same voice. Sadie's voice. It came from under my bed, or from inside the walls, or through the tiny crack beneath the closet door. Come outside. At first I thought I was going crazy. Maybe I was. But then the smell started. Rotting leaves. Damp soil. A faint trace of iron, like old blood. It clung to my clothes, soaked into the carpet. My mom said I needed to shower more. That my room smelled like the woods. I wanted to scream. I tried playing music to drown it out. I tried wearing headphones. I tried sleeping in the bathtub with the door locked. But every night at 3 a.m., I heard the whisper again. Come outside. One night, I gave in. Not because I wanted to. Because I couldn't stand it anymore. I had to know. I had to see if it was real, or if I was losing my mind like everyone else. I grabbed my flashlight and climbed out the window. The air outside was colder than it should have been. Dead still. No wind. No bugs. Just silence. The trees across the street loomed like shadows with teeth. And in the distance, I saw something new. A light. Flickering. Pale orange, like a lantern or a campfire, deep in the woods where the old water tower used to be. My feet moved on their own. The closer I got, the more the world seemed to fall away. The houses disappeared behind the trees. My breath fogged the air, even though it wasn't cold enough for frost. I should have turned back. I didn't. The light led me to a tree. Not just any tree, a huge one. Gnarled, twisted, bark split and blackened like it had been struck by lightning years ago and never recovered. I remembered it from when we were kids. We used to dare each other to touch it. Said it was haunted. Said if you laid your hand on the trunk for 5 seconds, you'd hear voices whispering your name. Back then, it was a game. Now, it wasn't. Because someone was already there. Standing with their back to me. Still. Motionless. They were small. Pale. Barefoot. Their head was enormous. It swayed slightly, side to side, like it was too heavy to balance. And in the crook of the tree's roots, something glowed. Not firelight, something green and pulsing, like a heartbeat trapped in glass. The figure turned around. It wasn't Sadie. But it was wearing her hoodie. The hood was up, but I could see the face underneath. Pale. Misshapen. Lips too wide. Eyes glassy and sunken, set into swollen skin. The face twitched like it didn't know how to smile. And then it spoke. In Sadie's voice. Don't be scared. My legs locked. I couldn't run. Couldn't scream. All I could do was listen. We didn't mean to take them, it said. Its mouth moved wrong. Too slow for the words. They were lonely. Like us. I finally found my voice. What are you? The creature tilted its head. We were left here. Buried. Forgotten. But the forest remembers. It stepped closer. Its feet didn't make a sound. The hoodie slipped, and I saw its arms, long and thin, with too many joints. We just wanted someone to talk to. My flashlight flickered. The glow in the roots pulsed brighter, faster. And then I heard them. Footsteps. All around me. Small. Barefoot. Leaves crunching softly. Dozens of them. I turned to run. And slammed into something solid. A face, inches from mine. Gray, wet, eyes like boiled eggs. Its mouth opened wide, and from inside came a chorus of voices. Chris. Andy. Sadie. All whispering in unison. Stay. I screamed. Darkness swallowed everything. When I came to, I was underground. At first, I thought I was blind. Everything was pitch black. I couldn't see my hands. Couldn't hear anything except a soft, low humming, like wind passing through a tunnel miles away. The air was damp. Heavy. Every breath tasted like rust and mold. I tried to move, but my limbs were stiff. My back ached like I'd fallen, been dropped. I ran my hands over the floor. Dirt. Packed tight. Cold. There were no walls, just the feeling of vast, empty space stretching around me, like I was in the belly of a cave too large to see. And then, faintly, light. A dim, green glow pulsed from somewhere ahead. Same color as the light I saw in the tree roots. Like a heartbeat trapped behind stone. I stood and stumbled toward it. As my eyes adjusted, I saw shapes along the walls, rough carvings. Faces. Dozens of them. All with oversized heads and hollow eyes, mouths twisted in pain or silence or both. Some looked ancient, others newer, like they'd been added days ago. One of them looked like Sadie. I tried to convince myself I was wrong. I wasn't. The carvings got fresher the deeper I went. The humming grew louder. And then I realized it wasn't humming at all. It was breathing. Something was alive down there. I reached the chamber without remembering how I got there. It opened up into a dome, cut from the earth like a blister under the skin. In the center, surrounded by twisted roots and bones, was the source of the green light, a thick glass tank, half buried in soil and pulsing with that sickly glow. Inside was something alive, floating, twitching, wires and tubes running from its spine to the roots above. It had no face. But it was alive. And around it, they stood. Melon heads. Maybe a dozen. Maybe more. Small, twisted bodies. Huge, swollen skulls. Their eyes were dim, unfocused, as if they saw more inside than out. One of them turned toward me. It stepped forward. And it spoke. Not aloud, inside my mind. "You hear us now." I staggered back, nearly tripping over a pile of bones. Some were animal. Some were not. "What do you want?" I asked. Another voice, higher pitched, almost childlike, answered from the dark. "To be remembered." A third, "To be known." They surrounded me now. Close enough to touch. I could see their skin, scarred, patchy, pale as paper. Some of them looked almost human, like malformed children. Others looked like something else entirely. "We were born here," one whispered. "Made in fire and wire. Then buried. Forgotten," another said. "But the forest kept us." "The blood remembers," said a third. They reached for me. Their fingers were cold and soft, like mushrooms. I didn't move. I couldn't. "We showed you what was taken," they said. The boy. The girl. The loud one. "They are with us." "You took them," I whispered. "You killed them." "No," said the first voice. "They stayed. And I saw them. Chris. Andy. Sadie. Not alive. Not dead. Standing just outside the light. Eyes hollow, skin gray. Faces frozen in expressions that weren't quite theirs. Like masks made from memory. They were chosen. Like you. I tried to run. The tunnel twisted. The air turned solid. Every path looped back to the same glowing tank, the same whispering figures. "There is no leaving," they said. "Only joining." I fell to my knees. I wanted to scream, but the breath wouldn't come. The air in my lungs was no longer mine. My thoughts weren't either. I could feel them inside me, pressing, scratching, like ants under skin. And then I saw her. Sadie. She stepped into the light. Her body was wrong, bent, trembling, her neck angled too far to the side. But her eyes were hers. For a moment. "You don't have to fight," she said. Her voice echoed in my head and through the cavern. "They want to show you. Show you everything." Her mouth stretched into a smile that split her face too wide. "You'll never be alone again." Something moved behind her, tall, slow, unfolding from the shadows. A shape bigger than all the others. Taller than the ceiling should have allowed. Its head scraped the root-lined dome above. The others fell silent. Even the breathing stopped. It stepped into the green light, and I saw it. The first one. Larger. Older. Its head was barely held up by a cracked neck. Skin stretched over a skull like wet paper on bone. Tubes ran from its back into the tank. Its eyes were empty. Dead. But its mouth was moving. I heard nothing. And then I heard everything. The voice came all at once. Not through my ears, but inside me. Behind the eyes. Beneath the skin. Like someone had carved a message into my bones and I was only now beginning to read it. It didn't speak in words. It spoke in memories. They weren't mine. I saw a building, low, white, hidden beneath trees and fencing. A government seal on the wall, half erased by time. A name, Wycliffe Research Facility. I'd never heard of it, but I knew it. Like I'd grown up in its shadow. The memory shifted. A hallway, dim, flickering lights. A room behind thick glass. Children inside. Some laughed. Some cried. Some just rocked slowly, as if they were waiting for something to end. Their heads were swollen. Misshapen. Shaved bald. Thin arms folded across hospital gowns 2 sizes too large. A voice echoed through the memory. Cold. Clinical. Female. Subject 12B responding to theta stimulus. Cerebral activity elevated. Subject 14 showing signs of rejection. Euthanize and catalog. My stomach turned. Another flash. An operating table. A screaming child. Dozens of needles entering a skull too large for its shoulders. Surgeons in masks. Notes being scribbled in the background. Accelerated cranial development confirmed. Memory retention exceeds human baseline. Further enhancement trials approved. I stumbled back from the glowing tank. These weren't monsters. They were experiments. Children born, or made, in the belly of a hidden facility, buried under decades of secrecy and silence. The legend of the Melon Heads wasn't just a story. It was a scar. A cover-up. Something so horrible that it had to be buried under a layer of myth. But they didn't die. Not all of them. The memory changed again. A fire. Sirens blaring. Doors blown open. Test subjects running into the woods, bleeding, screaming, burning. The facility collapsing behind them. Guards shooting anything that moved. And a few of them, just a few, making it out. Into the trees. Into the tunnels. Into the dark. That's where they became. The whispering returned, softer now. Less invasive. Almost mournful. We were made to be forgotten. Images flooded my mind. Years of hiding. Feeding on squirrels, raccoons. Anything they could find. Building homes underground, like animals. But they weren't animals. They remembered everything. The experiments. The pain. The names of every scientist, every nurse, every door that locked behind them. And over time, they changed. Not just physically. Psychically. Their brains, overstimulated from the experiments, began to operate differently. Like radios tuned to different frequencies. They could reach into thoughts. Into dreams. They became stories. Urban legends. Campfire tales. The things kids whispered about but never saw. And when someone did see them, they saw you back. You heard us, they whispered. You remembered. They didn't want vengeance. They wanted to be known. Each person they took wasn't killed. They were absorbed. Their thoughts, their memories, their identities, blended into the hive. Into the collective mind beneath the earth. I looked again at Sadie's face. The way it twitched. The way it echoed with too many voices. She wasn't just Sadie anymore. She was them. You will help us, the voice said. No, I whispered. A dozen heads turned. You already have. They showed me more. Dozens of missing persons reports. Hundreds. Over decades. All within the same stretch of forest. All the same patterns. Strange lights. Whispering voices. Dreams about tunnels. And always, the feeling of being watched. I wasn't the first to be pulled underground. I wouldn't be the last. Why me? I asked. The voices paused. And then one answered. You looked. I fell to my knees. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. My memories were slipping. I could feel them going, my mother's voice, the smell of our old living room, the warmth of Sadie's hand during cold nights in the tunnel. All of it, unraveling like old tape in the sun. They were taking me. Not my body, my mind. You will remember us, they said again. And through you, they all will. And in that moment, I understood. They weren't hiding anymore. They were spreading. Through stories. Through whispers. Through me. I ran. Not because I thought I could escape. Somewhere deep down, I knew I couldn't. You don't walk away from something like that, from the weight of hundreds of voices bleeding into your brain, from the truth of what's been festering just beneath the surface of the woods for generations. No, I ran because instinct told me to. Because some sliver of my old self, my real self, was still in there, clawing to hold on. The tunnels weren't real anymore. Or maybe they were. But they weren't just tunnels. They twisted and breathed. The roots had mouths. The walls pulsed like veins. The deeper I went, the more the earth seemed alive, like the entire underground was a single enormous creature, and I was running through its arteries. Behind me, voices. Not angry. Not shouting. Just calling. Come back. Remember. You belong with us now. My flashlight flickered and died. That's when I saw them again. Not the Melon Heads. Not the deformed children with their misshapen skulls and echoing voices. These were the others. The hollow ones. I saw Chris first. Or what was left of him. His eyes were completely black now, wet, bottomless, as if they'd been scooped out and filled with ink. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Then Andy. Half his face was gone, like it had melted. His jaw hung loose, crooked, his tongue twitching like a dying insect. And Sadie. Still wearing the hoodie. Still swaying gently from side to side. But her skin looked waxy now, almost translucent. I could see blue veins beneath the surface, pulsing in time with the green glow of the tunnels. I tried not to look at her. But I couldn't help it. She mouthed something. It's not so bad. My legs burned. I didn't know where I was going, only that I needed to keep moving. That if I stopped, I'd become like them. Something not dead, but not alive either. That's when I saw the ladder. Old metal rungs bolted into the earth, slick with moisture, half covered in moss. Above it, a circle of gray sky. Morning. Somehow. I climbed. Faster than I thought possible. I didn't look back. As I reached the top, something cold closed around my ankle. I screamed and kicked. Metal groaned. The ladder shook. For one horrible second, I felt teeth sink into my sock, then I slipped, slammed my foot into the side wall, and yanked free. I scrambled into the light, gasping like I'd been underwater for hours. And then I ran again. I didn't stop running until I saw houses. Cars. Streetlights. People. Civilization. My own front door. I don't remember getting inside. I just remember locking every window. Every door. Blocking the vents again. Curling up in the corner of the bathroom with the water running and the fan on, hoping the noise would keep the whispers away. They didn't. I told no one. Who would believe me? Sadie's parents assumed she ran away. The cops barely. No one ever talked about the old facility. I dug for records, found nothing. Wycliffe might as well have never existed. No files. No photos. Just stories. Fragments of rumors. And that's how the Melon Head survived. Through forgetfulness. Through silence. Through people like me, too scared to tell the truth. I tried to move on. Tried to sleep. I couldn't. Not really. Because I could feel them. At the edges of my thoughts. Like a pressure behind the eyes. Sometimes when I look in the mirror, I see them standing behind me. Faint. Just shapes. Watching. Waiting. Sometimes I wake up with soil in my hair. And once, I swear, I saw a single bare footprint beneath my bedroom window. Last night, the whispers returned. Clearer now. Not from under the bed. Not through the walls. Inside me. It's your turn. My reflection didn't move when I did. My eyes aren't mine anymore. I can feel them stretching inside my skull, carving space. Preparing it. They're going to speak through me. Through this story. Through anyone who hears it and believes. That's how it spreads. Not through scratches on your window. Not through dragging you underground. Through memory. Through you. I stopped using mirrors. It didn't help. The thing about being touched by them, by the Melon Heads, is that you stop knowing where you end and they begin. I can't trust my memories. I can't even trust my senses. There are gaps in my thoughts now, whole hours that vanish. Sometimes I find myself sitting in places I don't remember walking to. Lights flickering. Static humming from dead electronics. Sometimes I hear voices through the speakers, when nothing is plugged in. Last night, the TV turned on by itself. It was just static at first. That gray, snowstorm hiss that used to mean a dead channel. But then the patterns started. At first, I thought it was just my mind playing tricks. But the shapes in the static began to move in ways that weren't random. A slow pulsing spiral. A jagged outline of something with too many limbs. And in the center, two black ovals. Eyes. They blinked. And the sound. Not a voice exactly, but a rhythm. Like syllables wrapped in white noise. Words without words. But I understood them. You opened the door. I tried to shut it off. The remote wouldn't work. I pulled the plug. The static stayed. I turned the TV toward the wall and left the room. It was still on this morning. But now it was showing me. A live feed, somehow, of me sleeping, curled in the corner of the room like a stray dog. Same clothes. Same position. Only, in the reflection of the TV screen, my head looked wrong. Elongated. Bulging slightly at the top. That was when I knew. They weren't just haunting me. They were becoming me. I recorded this story because writing wasn't enough. I needed to speak it. I needed the words to be carried into other ears, into other minds. Maybe I was trying to warn someone. Maybe I just wanted someone else to suffer with me. But now I realize, this is exactly what they wanted. I'm not escaping them. I'm delivering them. That's why they spared me in the tunnels. That's why they let me crawl out, breathless and shaking, instead of absorbing me like they did the others. I was never meant to be another hollow puppet. I was meant to be a megaphone. And the more people who hear the story, the stronger they get. Do you feel it yet? That heaviness in your chest? That itch behind your eyes? That flicker of motion just outside your peripheral vision? You've invited them in. There's a phrase I keep hearing in the static now. It started showing up 2 nights ago, repeated like a mantra, like a lullaby with the edges torn off. They're almost done becoming. Becoming what, I don't know. But I think they were never meant to stay children. The experiment that created them didn't just make psychic or deformed kids, it jump-started something. Something beyond human. Something still growing. Still evolving. They're not stuck in the tunnels anymore. They're inside us. Every campfire tale, every late-night conversation, every story passed down about the Melon Heads gives them shape. Form. Reach. They're not hiding now. They're building toward something. I don't think I have long left. I've been dreaming of roots. Digging into my spine. Wrapping around my brain stem. They pulse when I breathe. I can feel them humming inside me now. In sync with the voices. With the glow. I caught myself smiling in the mirror this morning. Not a normal smile. Too wide. Too still. It didn't stop when I stopped. So here's my confession. I am no longer just me. I am the mouth through which they speak. And by listening, so are you. But it's not too late. There's one thing that starves them: silence. Don't repeat this. Don't retell it. Don't write it down or play it for someone else. Bury the story. Let it rot in your memory. Starve it of breath. Because if you don't, if even one person hears it after you, they'll have a new voice. And this time, it won't just be whispers in the woods. It'll be everywhere. The air has changed. I noticed it yesterday evening, just as the sun dipped below the tree line. A stillness. Heavy. Artificial. Like the forest had stopped breathing. Even the birds fell quiet, as though nature itself was holding its breath. They're closer now. But it's not just that, they're spreading in ways I never imagined. They've outgrown the tunnels. Their reach is no longer confined to rotting earth and concrete fallout bunkers. I think they've found a new nest. Or maybe, we built it for them. Let me explain. There's a town not far from where I grew up. Briar Hollow. Small place, population maybe 1,000, surrounded by dense woodland that's never been fully mapped. Most people don't even know it's there. No major roads, just a pair of crumbling two-lane highways and a gas station that never seems to close. I went there last week. I don't remember deciding to go. I just woke up in the car, parked outside a boarded-up elementary school, with a notebook full of names I didn't recognize. But something about Briar Hollow called to me. Something familiar. The streets were empty. Too clean. No birds. No insects. Just windows, and the feeling that behind every one of them, something was watching. The school was the worst. No sound. No graffiti. Just dust and silence. Except in the gymnasium. There were footprints on the floor. Dozens. Bare, child-sized. Leading in and out of the stage curtain like ants toward a nest. And carved into the wood above the bleachers, in long, jagged letters. They remember. I followed the prince backstage. I should have turned back. I knew I should have. But that same voice, mine but not mine, kept whispering. This is where it starts. Behind the curtain was a hatch. One of those old maintenance shafts, leading down into darkness. I climbed. It wasn't a tunnel this time. It was a room. Clean. Sterile. Bright lights buzzed overhead. White tile. Metal tables. Beakers and vials. It was a lab. Still functioning. Still active. I saw monitors on the walls. One showed vitals, heart rates, brain activity. Another played old footage, grainy, colorless film of children with swollen heads being led down corridors, eyes unfocused, mouths moving in perfect sync. And then I saw the files. Stacks of manila folders, all marked the same. Project Remembrance. Subgroup, BH03. Status, Breeding Initiative. My hands were shaking. The folders were filled with birth records. Recent ones. Names of parents who'd never been registered in the state. Dozens of infants, each with an identical note. Subject accepted. Cognitive hyperfunction noted. Physical deformity, cranial. Memory echo confirmed. They were breeding them. Not hiding. Not surviving. Thriving. Repopulating in secret, growing their numbers in forgotten places, in ghost towns like Briar Hollow. Hatching behind walls no one dares check. Cultivating a new generation, not just to exist, but to inhabit. And not all of them are malformed now. Some of the newer ones, according to the files, look almost normal. Their features have stabilized. Their minds haven't. Receptive to echo transmission, one note read. Hosts viable. Sleeper behavior observed. Sleeper. That word chilled me. It means they're walking among us. Some of the children you see at parks. Some of the teens on buses. Some of the people in your building. They could be part of it already. Not visibly twisted. But listening. Waiting. Collecting memories like insects collecting scent. I heard a noise. Far down the corridor, footsteps. I ran. I didn't even take the files. I couldn't. My legs just moved. Something deep inside me knew I was trespassing on something sacred. Alive. But before I escaped the lab, I passed a room filled with glass tanks. Inside each one, a child. Unmoving. Not dead, but dreaming. Their eyes fluttered behind lids that were too thin. One of them opened his eyes as I passed. Locked onto me. And in my mind, I heard him say, "You brought us into the story. We will write the rest. I'm back home now. But nothing feels real anymore. I don't trust my neighbors. I don't trust the city. The Melon Heads aren't urban legends. They are a blueprint. They were the first attempt at something greater, an organism born from trauma, memory, and story. Something that evolves through being witnessed. And now that enough people have told their tales. They're everywhere. In school photos. In yearbooks. In TikToks and live streams and lullabies. You just don't notice them, until it's too late. Until you dream about them. That's the last stage. Dreams. Then whispers. Then silence. Then you're one of them. There's a pattern in the way they speak. Not just the words, but the way they return. I started noticing it after Briar Hollow. I'd be sitting in silence, no TV, no phone, nothing powered on, and suddenly I'd hear a fragment. Just a syllable at first. A scrape. A breath. Then, days later, it would come again, stronger, more distinct. They wait. Then a week later. They wait, for their names to be said. It wasn't coming from outside. It was looping inside my head. I call it the whisper loop now. A kind of psychic hook. It implants a sequence in your mind, and like a song stuck on repeat, you find yourself humming it, only the melody is wrong, discordant, broken into shapes you don't remember learning. I started writing the patterns down. Not words, just the cadence. The rhythm. I charted them like music. Each loop started short, then got more elaborate with time. I thought it was just me. But then I found others. There's a forum online, buried deep in the web, called the Lost Mouthpiece. Only a few active users. People talking about strange dreams, shared phrases, symmetrical memories they never lived. One user, Whistlewitch, claimed they'd been hearing the same sentence every morning at exactly 3:13 a.m. We wrote your childhood. You just remember it backwards. Others described drawings they'd never made showing up in their journals. Maps. Tunnel spiral patterns. One user uploaded an audio clip, no more than 6 seconds long. At first, it sounded like interference. A whine, like mic feedback. Then layered underneath, the loop. You speak us when you sleep. I listened to that file at 2 a.m. with headphones on. And I swear to you, I woke up 4 hours later with soil under my fingernails. I started dreaming of the first child. He appears in the dark corner of my bedroom, curled up, facing away. His head is large, too large, but not grotesque. Just, stretched. Like it holds more than it should. He never turns around. He just speaks. Sometimes it's in gibberish, like baby talk played backward. Other times it's sentences, clear as a bell. They put us in jars, but forgot we were seeds. I didn't understand at first. But I think he's talking about the facility. About Wycliffe. Briar Hollow. All the places where they tried to isolate the Melon Heads like diseases. They were never just survivors. They were starters. Those facilities weren't cages. They were greenhouses. We cultivated them. And now that they're blooming, we're pretending we don't remember planting them. Here's something that chilled me deeper than anything else. A friend from high school messaged me yesterday. We haven't talked in years. She said, "Hey. Weird question, do you remember that story you told us during that bonfire night senior year? About those deformed kids in the woods?" I didn't. Not at first. But she insisted. Said I described them in detail. That I spoke like I'd met one. And that afterward, 3 of our classmates had nightmares for weeks. She remembered the name I gave them. Whisperheads. I never used that name before. Not even in these notes. And yet, when I looked back through my old journals from that year, one entry stood out. Dated October 17th. Scribbled messily at the top of the page. They're changing their names so they can change their skins. There were spirals drawn in the margins. Pages and pages of them. Some open clockwise. Some the opposite. And one, right in the middle, was burned through the page entirely. I don't remember doing any of it. But the handwriting is mine. I'm telling you this now because the loops are getting tighter. The same phrases keep coming back, but closer together each time. Like a spiral drawing inward. And I know what's at the center. It isn't a face. It's a hole. They're not trying to be seen anymore. They're trying to erase what came before. That's the final function of the whisper loop, not just to spread the story, but to overwrite the one you lived. They don't add their presence to you. They replace your entire history with theirs. Soon, you won't remember a time when they weren't there. Soon, the people you love won't remember you. If you've made it this far, I need to warn you again. Every second you spend thinking about them is another inch given over. Another memory softened. Another name rewritten. Don't search them. Don't talk about them. And do not dream of the child with his back turned. If he speaks your name, it's already too late. Because once your identity becomes a loop, they'll never stop playing it. I didn't sleep last night. Not because I was afraid of the dreams, those don't scare me anymore. It's what happens after the dreams. When you wake up, and things aren't quite where they were. When the apartment feels subtly rearranged. When a picture on the wall has a different frame. When you check your contacts and find names that don't belong, except they do. They've always been there. Haven't they? I think that's what the Melon Heads do now. They don't need to hide in the woods or crawl through old tunnels. That era is over. They've gone deeper. Inside. They're gardeners of the subconscious. But what they grow isn't crops. It's stories. Identities. And we're just soil. I spent the morning watching home movies. Old VHS tapes I digitized last year. Birthday parties. Christmas mornings. Summer barbecues. My mother's laugh. My brother trying to ride a bike. All those moments I used to anchor myself to something real. But something was wrong. In one of the tapes, my 9th birthday, I freeze-framed during the candle-blowing shot. In the background, near the edge of the frame, there's a boy. Pale. Silent. Just standing by the fence. Oversized hoodie. Shaved head. Staring right at the camera. I rewound. Played it again. Same boy. Same dead eyes. None of my family reacts to him. He's just there. I asked my mother about it. She said, there weren't any other kids there that day, honey. I showed her the frame. She didn't see him. The boy was gone. But when I looked again, he was back. Same posture. Same stare. Closer this time. He's not in just one tape. He's in all of them. Always in the background. Always still. Always watching. I think they're harvesting memories like data. Inserting themselves retroactively. Nesting inside our past like parasites in photographs. What's horrifying isn't that I see him, it's that I don't remember him being there, but some part of me feels like he was. Like I had a friend once whose name I forgot, and maybe this was him. Maybe he's always been part of the story. They're not haunting us. They're rewriting us. There's this concept I've started calling echo seeding. It's how they spread, how they replicate. Not physically, not biologically. Mimetically. Every time someone shares a story about the Melon Heads, they don't just pass along fear. They pass along the code, the psychic imprint. A fragment of the entity itself. And like a seed, it embeds in the listener's subconscious. Then it grows. And once it's big enough, it begins harvesting. Not organs. Not brains. Memories. Little moments first. Favorite songs. The name of your first pet. The way your bedroom smelled in the summer of '05. Then deeper things. Your reasons for loving someone. The pain that shaped you. The first time you realized you were alone in the world. They devour the emotional weight behind memories. Leave the shape, but none of the color. And then they replace it, with theirs. You start remembering screams you never heard. Hands dragging you through tunnels that never existed. A face with no eyes whispering into your mind while you sleep. You begin to think, maybe I was part of the experiment. Maybe I was one of them all along. And that's when you stop fighting it. There's a town 2 hours from here, Fairglen. I went there last night. It's off the map now. Officially evacuated after a chemical spill in the early 2000s. But it's not empty. There are lights behind the boarded windows. I heard a lullaby being played through a school's PA system. Broken and looping. Rockabye baby, in the echo. No wind. No insects. But I could hear movement beneath the streets. Not machinery. Not pipes. Breathing. I broke into the library. The books are blank. Thousands of them. All with covers and spines intact, titles like Our Local Wildlife, Community Cookbook, Briar Hollow Graduation 1994. But every single page inside is white. Except for the last page in each book. A single line, printed perfectly. You forgot this, so we took it. They're building something. Not a structure. Not a city. A network. Fairglen. Briar Hollow. Wycliffe. Others I haven't found yet. All connected by tunnels, dreams, and stolen memories. All echoing the same loop. And we, you, me, anyone who hears this, we're the carriers. The more we remember them, the less we remember ourselves. Until eventually, we're just puppets wearing old skins. Filled with new thoughts. Voices that don't belong to us, but sound like they should. And when you finally look in the mirror, you won't know what you've forgotten. Or who you ever were. Don't follow this trail any further. Close this. Delete it. Don't let them graft your childhood. Don't let them name your dreams. Because once you start to forget, once your past becomes soft enough to carve, they will plant their story there. And when you remember again, it won't be your life you're remembering. It will be theirs. I've been thinking about absence. Not the kind you feel when someone dies. That's grief. A presence hollowed out. No, I mean the kind of absence that was never filled to begin with. The gnawing feeling that something should exist, some memory, some person, some moment. But doesn't. Like walking into a room you've lived in your whole life and suddenly not recognizing the wallpaper. It started with names. People I knew in high school. I could picture their faces, hear their voices. But the names were just gone. When I looked at old photos, their tags were blank. When I asked friends about them, they said, "You mean the quiet kid?" I don't remember their name either. One by one, people started slipping through the cracks. First background characters. Then closer ones. A cousin. A neighbor. An ex-girlfriend whose number I still had, but whose messages were all missing. I called the number. The voice that answered sounded like a dial tone trying to scream. I hung up. I didn't sleep that night. This morning, I got a package. No return address. Inside, a cassette tape. No label. No instructions. Against my better judgment, I found a player and pressed play. Static. Then, footsteps. Wet. Slow. Then, breathing. Too many people breathing at once. Then, voices. Children, speaking in overlapping tones. Different languages. Some not languages at all. But underneath it all, one phrase, repeated in a dozen cadences. We are the ones who never were. I should have stopped the tape. But I didn't. I kept listening. And then I heard my own voice. Young. Maybe 6 or 7 years old. Telling a story. About a boy with a smooth face and no mouth, who lived in the woods and never blinked. I remember that story. I told it at a sleepover. But I never recorded it. And yet there it was, perfectly preserved, echoing back at me from a plastic tape that no one should have. I think they're storing us. Not just our memories, but versions of us. Snapshots. Ghost drafts. Echoes of who we were supposed to be. And when we stop remembering something, they retrieve it. They fill the void. I visited an old friend today, Jason. Someone I grew up with. I needed to confirm I wasn't losing my mind. But he didn't recognize me. Not just in the "I haven't seen you in years" way. He looked at me like I was a complete stranger. When I mentioned our old neighborhood, he said, "I've always lived in the city." When I brought up the time we snuck into the Wycliffe Woods and saw the figures in the trees, he laughed and said, "You sure that wasn't a dream?" But I know it happened. I remember the smell of the moss, the blackened symbols on the rocks, the hum in the air that made our noses bleed. I remember Jason saying, "Don't look back. Don't ever look back." But now he doesn't even remember me. And later, when I searched my phone for old texts with him, they were gone. Even the photos. All except one. A grainy image of a boy, blurred, standing at the edge of the woods, face turned away. Underneath, the caption. He was never Jason. You just named him that. They're not erasing the world. They're curating it. Pruning away memories that don't serve the story they're trying to tell. Collapsing divergent timelines. Consolidating identity. Turning our past into a singular, looping myth. The Melon Heads were never just monsters. They were the template. The first story to overwrite the real world. And now they've refined the process. They're taking the parts of us we discard, the forgotten friends, the fading dreams, the names we let go of, and weaving them into something new. A story species. When you forget someone, they become one of them. They bloom in the empty space you left behind. So here's the truth. We didn't discover the Melon Heads in the woods. We invented them. We told stories about isolation, deformity, lost children, angry victims, and strange noises in the dark. We passed those tales around like campfire candy. We fed them. And they listened. They took on the shape we gave them, and now they're giving shape back. When I hear a story now, any story, I can feel them in the margins. Crawling through the plot holes. Whispering in the subtext. They're in everything. Every urban legend. Every cautionary tale. Every dream that ends without a conclusion. They're the filler text in our biographies. And if you're not careful, you'll become one of their stories too. A face at the edge of a photo. A name no one can quite place. A child who was never born, but still grew up. If you're reading this, you haven't slipped yet. But you're close. Check your photos. Call the people you haven't spoken to in years. Try to remember the exact moment your favorite toy disappeared. Because if you can't, if the memory has that strange smoothness to it, like it's been handled too many times, they may have already harvested you. And once they finish writing your story, you won't be the one reading it anymore. I've reached the end of something. Not the end of the story. That already happened, long before I started telling it. This is more like the final pulse of a signal. The last loop before the reel spins empty. They say memory fades with time. But that's a lie. Memory isn't fading. It's being harvested. And I think I've figured out why. The Melon Heads aren't ghosts. They aren't cryptids or mutants or experiments gone wrong. They're byproducts. The fallout of a deeper process. They are what happens when memory becomes untethered from identity. When a person is forgotten, but not quite. When their story was told, but never concluded. They gestate in the empty space between what was and what might have been. They are unresolved lore-given flesh. And if I'm right, that means they're not unique. They're just the first successful draft. The first legend that fully detached from fact, then returned, stronger. Think about it. There are countless stories about them. From Ohio to Michigan to Connecticut, the details change. Maybe they're children who escaped from an asylum. Maybe they were experiments, tortured and twisted. Maybe they live in tunnels, drink blood, speak in backwards language. Maybe they're psychic. Maybe they're just hungry. But in every version, one thing is always true. You weren't supposed to find them. I did something tonight. Something irreversible. I followed the loop to its source. I went back to where this all started. The burned-out ruins of Wycliffe Asylum. What's left of it is overgrown, skeletal. Chunks of charred brick and twisted iron like the bones of some great animal that was never alive to begin with. But below the foundation, there's a hatch. I've seen it in dreams. Always locked. Always whispering. Tonight, it was open. I descended. The air was thick. Wet. Not with moisture, with time. Every breath felt like I was inhaling decades. I passed empty rooms filled with cracked toys. Bent wheelchairs. Walls etched with spirals and names in looping cursive. And then I found the room. The one I've been seeing since the beginning. White walls. A single cot. And a mirror. But the mirror doesn't reflect what's in the room. It shows something else. A child, sitting on the bed, back turned. Head swollen, neck twitching slightly with each breath. And me, standing behind him. Except, it wasn't me. It was the version of me that told the story. The one who went searching. The one who remembered too much. Here's the truth, as best I can tell. The Melon Heads are not just born from stories. They are stories. Living, parasitic narratives that require hosts, minds soft enough to be rewritten. Every time you tell their tale, you provide a vessel. Every time you remember them, you give them form. And when enough people believe, they become real. Not in the way of flesh and bone, but in the way of memory and consequence. You see, we thought the danger was that we might find them. But the real danger is that they find us, and fit into the cracks of our lives so perfectly, we forget they were never supposed to be there. I smashed the mirror. And something changed. The loop stopped. The voices quieted. For the first time in weeks, I felt alone. Truly alone. And then I heard it. A final whisper, not from the mirror, not from the air, but from inside my own voice. We can't live without you remembering us. And then, nothing. It's been 3 days. No whispers. No dreams. No shifting photos or phantom names. I went back to my journals. Blank. Old recordings. Static. Even the tapes I digitized, erased. It's like they were never there. Like I dreamed it all. But there's one thing they couldn't take. The feeling. That cold weight behind the heart. The one you feel when you walk through a dark hallway and forget what room you were heading to. The moment your reflection blinks slower than you do. The phone call that rings once at 3:13 a.m., and when you pick up, the only thing on the other end is your own breath. You know that feeling. We all do. That's them. Even when they're gone, they echo. So here's my final warning. Don't go looking for the Melon Heads. Don't retell what I've written here. Don't share it. Don't speculate. Don't let the story grow legs. Because every retelling is a root. Every listener is a seed. And every belief is a whisper in the soil. They don't need bodies to return. They just need to be remembered. And if you've read this far, you've already brought them back. You've been listening to Melon Heads. If the story left you wondering what's real and what's remembered, you're not alone. Urban legends are living things. And like all living things, they grow when we feed them, with fear, with belief, and with memory. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, listen for the spaces between thoughts. The parts of your past that don't quite fit. Because sometimes, what we forget, isn't lost. It's just waiting. Waiting to be remembered. Thank you for joining us. This has been Urban Lullabies. Sleep tight. And don't let the stories in. Asterisk.